Hey everyone, this is Jairus. I wanted to talk to you today a little candidly about a subject that I've been kind of thinking about, and it's related to basically the difference between a theme park game and a sandbox game, and how our expectations can actually change how we feel about those games or the enjoyment that we actually get out of them. See, most games that fall underneath the MMO category are what we would refer to as theme park games. And a lot of games like, say, Grand Theft Auto or, say, Elite Dangerous, those are what you would refer to as sandbox games. Now, in a lot of respects, they do share a lot of traits, a lot of similarities, but with some very, very distinct differences between the two. Theme park games tend to treat your character like you're the hero of legend, but that immersion can be destroyed, especially like in an MMO, where, as my friend Lightning Dragon says, "Oh, save us, chosen hero 8,625. You're the only one who can actually help us." And you're really just kind of filling the role that everyone else has already filled, and you're more of kind of being funneled down a channel, down a storyline, down a path, with an illusion of free will, free choice, with any actual decisions or choices that you have made having very little real world implications in it. Now, these kind of scenarios are great for games that want to provide a narrative or kind of create a frame of reference for other players, like, hey, where are you in the game right now? Oh, I'm on this section of the map doing such and such story. It's a nice frame of reference. It's a way to kind of bring people together as a community, reason for people to team up, group together, things like that. But overall, it is very, very restricting when you really think about it by the end of the day. Sandbox games treat you like a cog in a very large machine. A machine that's so large that if that cog was to be removed, that there would be little to no impact whatsoever. Elite Dangerous is probably one of the best examples of this, because you have over 400 billion star systems, millions of players, all kind of out there just doing what makes them happy, what they find enjoyment in the game, and occasionally bumping into each other and interacting with one another. Now, sandbox games are massively affected by the size or how big the world actually is. So you can take, for example, Grand Theft Auto 5. It's a very popular game. It is a sandbox game, but let's be realistic about it. The whole experience is not wrapped up into a very large package. It's a well detailed. Takes a while to get from point A to point B, but I guarantee you it's going to take you much longer, say, like an Elite Dangerous, to fly from one end of the galaxy to the other. And the bigger that you make these sandboxes, the more difficult it becomes for some people to find enjoyment in them, as action and high adventure becomes maybe less and less bumped into, and creating situations where time frames of high action, combat, or whatever are fewer and far between. I feel that for a lot of younger gamers, this is a very crippling thing for a game, not having that narrative or that quick action. And for a lot of older players like myself, it's actually liberating. I grew up with the Atari 2600, and I even had a Pong console, if you can believe that. And the thing is that a lot of those games back then, well, all of the games back then, graphics were terrible. There was not much to do in them, really. A lot of repetition. But where we made the game what you would consider today not even the quality of a Flash game, where we made that game entertainment for hundreds of hours, was because a large part of that experience was located in our minds. See, graphics were treated very much like, say, if you were to play Dungeons and Dragons on a map board and you had little figurines representing your characters. The graphics were basically that. They were representations of what the game was trying to tell you, where the pieces were positioned, and that created in our own heads very diverse, very vivid stories. I mean, I can go back and remember games like Adventure or Combat or Kaboom or Defender or any of those games. They were just very, very simple, but it was the imagination that brought them to life. And, I have to say part of the reason that these games appeal to us, when I talk about the older gamers, is that we still have that imagination. I mean, we came around with a time that, you had books, you had cassette tapes and records, you had, you were lucky if you could get a few channels on TV, and a lot of times it wasn't what was there wasn't worth watching, and you spent your time immersed in things that didn't visually feed you all the information, and you had to fill that gap in yourself. And a lot of the people growing up in like 2000 and on, or even the 1990s, they have had, for the most part, most of the work done for them. And they've become very addicted or very used to having a fully detailed and explained visual representation of the world that they're in and all the experiences they're in. And when it comes to sandbox world or things like that, these kind of thought processes of creating the story in your own head of who you are, what you're doing, and why you're doing it, that kind of eludes them a little bit. And that's not an insult by any measure or means. It's just a difference in the way that the generations, I think, approach things when it comes to gaming. Now, I remember that when the first MMOs came out, everyone referred to them as MMORPG. And I think the RPG was the important element because a lot of people who played those actually did, in their own minds, create their own backstories, their characters' attitudes towards things. They would even have, there was a lot more. It was a lot more common to see like role-playing guilds, role-playing servers. There was a lot of demand for it. I don't think there's nearly as much demand for it these days. You might, in fact, a lot of times people walk into a location of the game and there's people role-playing and they don't know what to think about it. And they're thinking, hey, are these guys ERPing? It's that comes to their mind more naturally, I think, sometimes than the standard experience of like, man, these guys are really into what they're doing. They're waiting for that weird, sick, sexual moment where basically people start trying to like hit on each other at a bar or something like that. They don't get that for these people that playing of that character is worth more to them than going out there and slaying a monster. It's worth more to them than getting the best gear. That's the game for them, and that's just a different perspective. Now you're probably asking yourself, where is he going with all this? And I would completely understand that thought process there. The reason I'm talking about all this is that a lot of complaints that you see that people are having with Elite Dangerous and things like that is because, there's nothing to do. There's nowhere, there's just, it's boring. There's this and that. And a lot of these people are waiting for Star Citizen to come out. And I hate to break it to you guys. What you see in Elite, a lot of that's going to be what you see in Star Citizen because, believe it or not, it's a sandbox just like Elite is. Maybe a little bit smaller, but it's still a sandbox. There are going to be long time periods in Star Citizen where you're out there either doing exploration or cargo runs or whatnot where you're going to have downtime. I feel this downtime is going to drive some people batty. There's a lot of people who are looking at Star Citizen and they look at the Arena Commander module, and to them, that's the end-all, be-all. That's what they want. They want that kind of focus. And there's really nothing wrong with that, but I think people better brace themselves for the eventual realization that fast food, instant, heroin shot to the arm of action is not going to be present for most of the game. In fact, that's probably going to be less than 10% of your whole experience, and I might be being a bit generous with that estimation. So I guess what I'm trying to say in conclusion on this is that Star Citizen, Elite Dangerous, other sandbox games like that, for the large part, they are what you make of them. They give you tools and let you go free with those tools and do what you want. But at the end of the day, the experience is what you do, what you imagine, what you think of, how you interact with people. You can't expect Frontier and you can't expect CIG to hold your hand on these. And if that's what you're expecting, you're in for a very, very rude awakening. This is Jarvis Citizen Gamer. Thanks for listening.